All right, so this video is talking about 03 to 07 Cummins 5.9 engines. I've had a couple engines come through in the last while that guys have screwed up, some being shops, some being just normal people. So I figured I better do a video on it so less people screw their stuff up. Let's get into it. If you look at these two injectors, you would say these two injectors are exactly the same. That would be incorrect. They are not the same injector. This one is for a 305 horse engine. This is for a 325 horse engine. Now, how you tell is by part number. Now, if you have a set of aftermarket injectors in your engine, most of the time, somewhere they'll be marked. They'll be marked on the body somewhere, or usually there's some sort of marking. If you don't have a marking on the injector, take your Chinese junk, kick it in the scrap bin, and go buy decent injectors. Just, that's all I'm gonna say. Now, if you have an actual set of Bosch injectors, if you look at the top of the solenoid right here, which I think I'll have to take a picture, you probably won't be able to see it in the camera, but this will be the last 3 digits of your part number. So with the way that Bosch's part numbers work, you have a new part number and a reman part number. If you take the first 7 digits and add those 3 digits, because that's how many digits the part number are, they're 10 digits. If you take those 2 part numbers, it'll tell you. I'll probably put some sort of a reference maybe. I don't know if I have time to do that or not. Anyways, you guys know how to use Google. Use Google. I realize that not everybody wants to use Google, that's why they're watching the video, but if you want to not blow your engine up, just use Google. But as far as the part numbers go, your one part number is going to be 0986435, and then your 3 digits. That is for your new ones. Your reman part number is going to be 0445120, and then your 3 digits. If you punch in those 2 different part numbers, it'll pop up 459, 305, 325. Like this one here is a 305 horse. Looking at it here. This is a 305 horse because it's a 018. I just know the number off the top of my head. And so usually in the industry, most guys will say a 503 injector, and then a 505 injector is a 325 horse. But there is some variances in there, so if you don't know the variances, best to use the Google machine, like I said before. The reason for, I guess the biggest reason for the video is to show you the difference between the 2 engines. They are very similar. The injectors and the pistons are the difference. If you put the wrong injectors in, well, this is probably what you're gonna get. It doesn't always happen right away, but it will happen at some point because the spray angle is completely different. So this is a 325 horse piston, which had a 305 horse injector in it. Now, all 4 of these pistons have quite a bit of damage. This one has lots of damage, as you can see. All of these came out the same engine. So this one got hot enough that it killed the valve seat, and that's why this one looks really bad compared to the other ones. But even these ones that still have free rings and stuff, you can see where the piston has eroded itself. Like it should have a square edge on it like this one, and it's not there. And then, well, I showed you this one that has the hole burnt through it. And then this one, the same idea. Not good. And the reason for that is the angle of the nozzle. So this style of piston, actually, let me get these out of the way. Let's look at ones that aren't screwed up here. So this is the 325 horse. These are junk pistons. I just bead blasted them so they weren't crappy looking. 325 horse, 305 horse, okay? So the spray angle on this is 124 degrees. Now, if you have aftermarket injectors or something like that, you can't figure it out, you can pull the nozzle off, and if they're decent injectors, they will actually be marked on here. I'll have to take a picture of it. I don't think that the camera will be able to see that, but this is 124 degrees. So these ones are 124 degrees. Now, these pistons, which is a 305 horse, is 143 degree. And the reason for such a difference, and lots of people are like, oh, it's only 20 degrees. In an injector, 20 degrees is a bit. It's especially in something like this. It turns into burnt out engine, and you're calling me for an engine. Okay, so listen. Basically, the big difference with the way that the spray pattern is, the fire acts differently from piston to piston. And obviously the spray angle is different. So you add a bunch of timing to it, which everybody tunes them and adds a bunch of timing to it. Well, with the 143 degree in this bowl, you're shooting way out here. And that's why that happens. And you'll get cylinder damage too. Let me show you cylinder damage. Right there. Hopefully you guys will be able to see that. There's a big gouge in that. And that is from the injector not firing properly. I think there was one other one. That's the one that had the chunk missing out of the piston. But that's what happens, and then you scrap a block. This block is junk. Because of that mark, the block is junk. Also, the cylinder head is beat to death, so it's also junk. So it sucks for this guy. His core is no good, so he doesn't get his core charge back. So it makes it really expensive. Well, makes it more expensive than it already was. So back to talking about pistons, is the fire on the 325 horse versus the 305 horse, the fire moves differently from piston to piston. So on a 325 horse, now the bowl being bigger, it technically should, the air-fuel mixture can mix better. I personally like this style. I find they run cleaner too. Depending on the tuning, obviously. But in general, I find this piston runs cleaner and tends to last longer. That's a personal opinion. But on these ones, your fire is coming down and it's going across here and then coming up the edge. Going from here, coming along, and then coming up and then hitting the cylinder head, shoving the piston down. Now, these ones do the same kind of idea, but it's in a different direction. It hits this edge here, the lip on the edge, comes down across, and then pushes, and then your fire comes up here and pushes out, which in turn keeps some heat out of this edge of the piston. That's why lots of times you'll see these guys, this style of engine will have a piston that looks like this, especially if it has an injector problem. Where on these ones tend to, if you have a problem with them, which is same with as a 6.7 piston, this is the bowl in the 6.7. Well, one of the 6.7 bowls is this one, is they'll crack. You'll actually get a crack in this lip. More common in the 6.7, I find, because they tend to pour more heat to them, but it does happen to these as well. So that's the reason not switching injectors around. You want to make sure you're using the right injector for the right piston. Now, as far as swapping the engines in the trucks, it honestly doesn't matter. So as long as you have a 305 horse engine with a 305 horse injector, it'll work in an 03 to 07. If you have a 325 horse engine with a 325 horse injector, it'll work from 03 to 07. Technically, they should be tuned differently, but out of the box, I've run both of them with no tuning. They will work. They do work. They will work. Period. They just do. I've done it a bunch of times. Now, if you have bought a truck, don't know, kind of like this guy, didn't know what he had. If you're having injectors put in, or if you're putting injectors in, what I would recommend is getting a Borescope, one of these. So you can stick your camera down inside the bore through, if you don't have the cylinder head off, through your injector hole. And when you stick it down through there, you'll be able to see this with the Borescope. You'll be able to see this bowl or this bowl. There's only two different style bowls for the Common 059, these two. From factory anyway, we're talking factory stuff. So if you shove your Borescope down and it's an 07 truck, let's say, and it has this bowl, you don't want to use a 325 horse injector and save yourself having a problem like that. Because either way, if you swap them around, you'll have problems no matter which way you go. So you just want to make sure you get the right ones. So that's what I always do. If I'm swapping in, I'll always take my Borescope, stick it down the hole, see what piston I'm working with. Usually I'll stick it down all the holes, make sure there isn't, you know, scuffing the cylinder or something that I can see. Lots of times it's hard to tell, but you stick the Borescope down there, you can tell what piston you're working with, and you don't end up with a problem. Because, and I'm no better than anybody else, I've swapped engines into different trucks, I've put 6.7s in 5.9 trucks. If you don't know, you don't know. Now, that's also something else. You can run the 305 horse injector with a 6.7 piston, but it's technically not exactly the same spray pattern. So if you're putting a 6.7 in one of these trucks, what I recommend to do is talk with the guys that are building your injectors and tell them, hey, I'm putting these 5.9 injectors into a 6.7 and which bowl you're using. There's actually 3 style bowls. Well, in an 07 to 2018, there's 3 style bowls that you could get. You could get this style, you could get the 13 pickup truck and newer style, which is just a little bit bigger. They're similar, but a little bit bigger, so a little bit different. And then there's a QSB style, which is like this, which is just like the industrial style. So just thought I would mention that. If you are doing it into a 6.7 quickly, I would have the injectors actually made for this piston, which is 146 degrees, which is close to 143, definitely a lot closer than 120 to 140. But I would, if you're putting a 6.7 in, have the right injector, it will run better. It's just how it is. But I'm hoping that this video will save somebody. If it saves one person from blowing their truck up, it was well worth my time to make the video and edit the video. Hopefully you found this valuable. If you like this video, check out this one, and we'll catch you on the next one.